Who the Wild Things Are with Ryan McGuire.
You gotta listen to your body.
Oh my God, maybe, I could get out there, I could do this.
Let's take a ride, find your wild side, real stories, see with your own eyes.
It's so beautiful.
I'm gonna have the best time out here.
I was in tears. I was just like, that's the best, man.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the attempt, the 24-hour assault bike world record attempt.
When is this happening?
It is happening, like 2 weeks from now?
Less than that.
April 29th and 30th. I'm going to be attempting the world record for the most miles biked on an assault bike, which is a stationary fan bike, which uses the arms and legs.
Sounds brutal.
It's for the kids.
Okay, so how did the idea come about?
How did the idea come about? So,
like in its most embryonic form.
Well, I always hated the assault bike, and I would use it to train because I thought it was miserable. And then lately, I haven't been able to run. My feet are like kind of jacked up. I hurt them while I was like wearing boots, snowshoeing in the mountains. And I haven't really been able to run, so started assault biking more. And then I was like, why don't I just try the world record? Because it sucks and it sounds miserable. And now we're here. Now I can't back out.
No. I realized I never said my name.
Who are you?
My name is Lauren.
What do you do here?
I produce and edit the podcast.
Who do you know here?
And we share a home. We're roommates. All right, so you couldn't walk. Honestly, for a long time, it was kind of scary because so many of your favorite things and so many of our favorite things are on our feet. I think you had this idea before you couldn't walk. Like, you've always wanted to do like giant things. Like you've always shot for pretty ambitious feats, but this is like one of the most ambitious. So like, when did the idea of a world record in general, like did that pop in your head before your feet got hurt?
I think I did have the idea. I had tossed it around in my head at the end of last year, maybe November. Like when I got an assault bike, I was like, I wonder, how far somebody could go in a day or a year. Like I thought about different time frames, but I never took it seriously, and I certainly never trained for it. And then I think, hurting my feet just kind of stabilized my mind on just the assault bike because there was less other big adventures to do. It sounds entertaining, but here's the thing about the assault bike. It is the most boring thing. Well, stationary bikes in general. Like, I like to do endurance events because I like to go out and I like to explore. I like to get in the mountains. I want to see like a porcupine in the tree or a bear eating, acorns in the valley. I don't want to like sit inside and just rot away on an assault bike. But here we are.
Yeah, that is the opposite of like everything you stand for.
Yeah, I'm a walking conundrum.
I would bet you would do an outside 24-hour bike ultra before you would do an inside.
Sure. I mean, I've done a couple of things that are 24 or 48, or big month-long trips outside that are pretty rigorous, but those are fun. This is not going to be fun.
Yeah.
Hopefully there will be bright points, but it's going to be a sufferfest.
Yeah. Well, at least you have a good mental idea, expectation in a way of going through it. But I think also the difference with this is that there is a record out there that has been beaten recently.
Yeah. So I got to get clarification. I'm pretty sure when I looked it up the first time, it was a bald dude. He was an Aussie. And he did it for this charity. I remember seeing this the first time I looked it up. It was like a kid's charity for melanoma or leukemia or something like that. And then I looked it up again, and it was basically the same record. So I think somebody kind of inched him out. And this guy's name was Ethan Fleming. And now I've been looking into this gentleman, Ethan Fleming. Total savage. he pulled a 2-ton car, like a big Jeep, 100 kilometers, like with a harness on, which is pretty savage. He has 5 Guinness World Records. So, and I'm pretty sure he said on his Instagram story, the 24-hour assault bike was the hardest thing he's ever done. He also did 11,400 burpees in a day, which that sounds miserable. But yeah, the guy's a savage, but he's been super nice. Like, he's very much into having people attempt these sorts of things. He believes in it, and I think he believes in sharing the essence of not just the event, but what goes into it, the training, the discipline, the ripple butterfly effect that it puts into other people's lives. You know, I think he does a lot of this stuff. He's a personal trainer, I think, and he sees that it has effects on other people. And I think ultimately that's what you want to do as someone in this position, is just inspire somebody to take that first step. You know, I don't think, you know, David Goggins is expecting everyone to run the Badwater, but I think, you know, people that have that kind of goal just want to tip the scale slightly and encourage somebody to take the first step.
Yeah. I think there's also another layer to that. Like, why do you think people like you or like Ethan or like David Goggins or like Don, why do people like you want to set a world record?
That's a good question. I wouldn't really put me with them. I would say those 3 are definitely a different breed than me. I'm in the normal folks camp. They're in the ultra endurance camp. I don't really think I belong on that yet. You are, you know, I can say I'm doing this, but I haven't done anything. You know, I haven't achieved any of the stuff that those people have achieved. The world record, I think when I was a kid, I loved Guinness World Record books. I thought it was so cool to be the best at something. It's such a rare opportunity to like feel like you are the best at something. So there's certainly like a little bit of ego in that, but it's a balance, right? I think all of us, you know, there's ego there, but then there's the other part of what can it accomplish. You look at Goggins and the Wounded Warriors, or mine is going to be this charity called Porter-Billups, which is a kids charity. And when you become the best at something, or when you do something the best that it's ever been done, it's one of those things that gets a lot of eyeballs, and it provides an opportunity to speak out about a cause that you believe in. So I think there's a lot of layers to why I want to do this. But the most important is just to figure out what I'm made of over everything. Like, I want to raise money for people. World records are cool. The event's going to be fun, but ultimately it's for me. And that's why I want to do it. And I think if you do it for any other reason, you'll fall short if you're not doing it for yourself.
Right. Like doing it for the superficial reasons.
Yeah, like Goggins can say, I'm doing it for all of my brothers, and all of that helps. All of like the external motivations help, but you also have to be there for yourself.
Yeah, fair.
To find out what you're made of.
I will backtrack a little and say you are in their camp. I think what's really fascinating is like your perception of where you belong in this world and where you place yourself amongst others. And I think most people, even people like Don, would place you right next to them. I think that, first of all, the fact that all 4 of you, and there's multiple others, but the fact that all 4 of you even want to attempt this puts you somewhere in the same category. I would bet so much money that all 4 of you have suffered immensely in your life. I would bet that you guys have gone through so much heartbreak and trauma and trials and tribulations. You're willing to test it. you know, because you've gone pretty far down that path and you know that you've come out. I think you know in your head that you have a little bit of durability. And I think you personally really push that envelope. And I think that's what makes you in their camp. Just to fact check you, because I know that you won't say this about yourself, but
I think an interesting thing to think about is you can tell what kind of trauma the endurance athlete has gone through by the charity that they choose.
yeah, that's so funny.
So you have like the one gentleman, God, I wish I knew his name, but there's no record book for Guinness. It's only who's at the top right now. If anyone knows his name, let me know. But his was like the child cancer org. He probably went through some dark shit. Goggins, all of his friends dying or whatever that story came down to. I'm not exactly sure the particulars, but you know, that kind of thing. And then for me, mine is just like trying to have a positive impact on kids' lives, because I didn't have positive role models. Like, it was just like common ground for the men in my life to go to prison, get kicked out of school, guns, drugs, violence, abuse, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe I'll be a light for some inner city kid that is seeing those same things.
Yeah, it doesn't even have to be some inner city kid. Like, people who look at your Instagram or who you are, your profile or anything like that, if they knew what was, you know, under the surface, I don't know, I think that people would really fully get the picture. It's because you spread such a positive message. Like, your life could have gone so in the opposite direction. Like, you could be, you know, just like wasting your life away, and you're not. So I think that's super cool. I mean, you definitely take it a step further than anyone I've ever met. But anyways, so you decided that you're going to do 24 hours. You decided you're going to attempt the world record. Where do you even begin training?
Well, so I kind of like got serious about it, and I called Ruthie and Bo, who owned V23. I had applied, so there's this long application process with Guinness, and you wait weeks, months, whatever, and then I get the answer from them saying, yo, your application has gone through. You may now review the guidelines, organize, and attempt. So I call Ruthie and Bo, because the first thing is like securing the venue, and they're, you know, tremendous people, and I knew that they would be interested in doing psycho things at their gym. So shout out to V23. And Ruthie was like, there's this weekend at the end of the month where we don't have anything going on. And I was like, all right, let's do it the end of the month. And so basically had like 4 weeks ish to really nail down like training. And my training has not been regimented or planned meticulously. I've never written anything down like this day 50 miles on the bike, this day 100 miles on the bike. It's just go by feel, have fun, and spend as much time with my ass in the seat as possible. So what I did was I essentially put some weights, like some plates, and I situated a piece of plywood over my assault bike. And so the thought was, I can sit there, I can watch other documentaries, I can, you know, do some computer work, I can do whatever it takes, and I can just have my legs spinning on the assault bike and getting used to my butt on that seat, because that is the determining factor for a lot of this, is your ability to stay in the saddle and getting used to telling your brain to fuck off when your brain says, hey, you need to get off and do this thing. Like, you will even trick yourself to peeing like 3-4 times an hour if you're assault biking, if you don't pay attention to it, because your body will start telling you, you need to get off to do this thing. You forgot to X, you forgot to Y, and you'll just start making these excuses in your head as to why you need to get off the bike. So my whole strategy is just figure out how to get comfortable for as many hours a day as possible in the saddle.
Yeah, I remember when you said the date for this thing, like, oh, I'm going to attempt a world record April 29th. And I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I was kind of like, we just picked a random day. Like, what do you mean? That was like a month ago. And then like as it gets closer, I'm like, oh shit, like this is serious. But I'm glad that you're training more than you did for your 100-miler, because you went into an ultra last October with zero training. So you know a little bit about the ultra world, and you certainly have some experience, but this one is going to take a little bit more mind power, you think?
Yeah, they're different beasts. I mean, that 100 was, I think, on the longer efforts, that was probably definitely top 3, but maybe the hardest thing I did last year. I'm trying to think. That might have been the hardest thing I did last year. I think this will be the second hardest thing that I do this year, and maybe the hardest thing I've done up to this point. We have one other adventure planned for this year, which is going to be maybe even more crazy. But yeah, I'm expecting this to be the hardest 24 hours of my life.
So like logistically, what does your training look like right now? Like, what do your days look like?
I mean, I'm doing a big weight session every morning. That's just me every day, non-negotiable. I train every morning. You obviously know this, but that hasn't been really focused on the assault bike any more than it usually is. I do assault bike intervals sometimes, or run, row, things like that, but it's not just focused on assault bike. After I get done with that weight session, I'll usually come home or be at V23 or somewhere, and I'll just spin for a couple hours. And it's not me pacing. I'm not looking at the mileage. I'm not looking at anything. I'm just trying to spend as much time in the saddle as possible and just spinning my legs out all day long. That's really the goal.
So you've done 2 like large efforts, probably your longest efforts you'll do before the attempt. So you did an 8-hour and then a 12-hour.
The 8-hour, I mean, it's not crazy, like 8 hours of biking. Typically what I'm doing with these longer efforts is I am splitting it up with biking outside, just so that I'm having fun. I love to bike outside. And one thing I love that people probably don't know, like I love biking when it's hectic. So I love like mountain biking. I loved our bike rides in Manhattan. Just like a hint of danger and just like speeding down the streets, sometimes on e-bikes, going super fast and just like dodging cars. So I like to get outside and like have fun with the bike riding. I want it to be engaging, and the assault bike is anything but engaging. It's literally torture. So what I would do for the efforts, like these longer 8 and 12s that you're talking about, is hit 3, 4, 5 hours in the morning, go out, road bike or mountain bike for an hour or 2, come back in, suffer some more. So yesterday, like you said, we did the 12-hour bike. I got up at 7. I was on the bike at 8. So I biked from 8 to 1, 17 miles an hour, which is the pace I need for 24 hours to hit 408 total miles. So 17 times 24 is 408. The current world record is 395.8. So that would smash the world record if I can hold that for 24. So that's the pace that I run at or bike at. And I biked till 1. Aaron came over. We went out. We did a loop. I put Aaron through it because I'm in really good biking shape right now. Poor guy's like, this is my first bike of the season. I'm like, oh, we're going for it.
Did you do the pavement or the mountain bike?
No, we mountain biked.
Oh, damn.
He was a great sport, though. We had a really good time. Came back and hopped in the cold plunge. So the mountain bike session with the cold plunge lasted 2 hours. So it was 5 hours, 2 hours of the mountain bike sesh, and then 5 more hours at night to finish it off.
And when you were biking the 12 hours, in your head, you were like, I know I can hold this pace for 24, because 17 miles an hour, like you're moving. Your pace is fast.
Yeah, no, I don't know. And I don't know. The thing is, there's no playbook for this. No one knows where. With ultras, it's like, okay, for the last like 30 years, there's been a bunch of science projects and taking the best athletes from all around the world, the Kilian Jornets, and seeing what is possible, right? And just that number slowly coming down and down and down and down. only really 3 people probably have ever attempted this. It's less than 10 people ever, right? I mean, there's not a lot of people that attempt this, so there's not really a human limit that's known. So it's me just trying to figure out, okay, here's the world record. I think I can beat that. How much can I beat it by without burning myself out? Because what you don't want to do is be like, oh, I can go 19 miles an hour, and you do that for 12 hours. You get 12 hours in, you're just toast.